Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to episode 5. I can't believe already. 5 of Sipping Tea with Stacey T. That is me. Today's episode is the calm and chaos. Gonna let you all filter in. You'll notice a new look. It's spring. So welcome. Wait for you guys to log in, to click on the live. Hope everybody's doing well. It is a beautiful day out, and I hope that you were able to enjoy some beautiful weather. I think it's around in the 60s now. It was a little chillier. But again, 40s for me is fine. I'm good. But hello, welcome. I see people coming on in. Hopefully, again, you're enjoying your Saturday. Very different time. Had some things going on this morning, so hitting you guys in the afternoon. And we're still going to do the same thing. We're going to still chat, and we're going to have some tea. I have a different tea today, but we're going to, hey, Tiffany, we're going to talk about, the calm and chaos. And I feel like if we're all honest, or, we're just looking at what's kind of happening in our lives, in the world, in this country, there's just so much chaos. And I think that it's really easy to get caught up in that. I myself fall prey to that very often. And I have really thought about this, or the need for having this conversation, to be quite honest, not just for you, but for me. I think that I'm looking to, hear how you all are managing with all the things that are kind of happening right now. So today, as always, I do have a tea. And today's tea, now this is funny because I don't pick my teas. Today's tea was picked by my sister. And today's tea is Irish breakfast tea. Now, how funny, right? Considering St. Patrick's Day is on Monday, but people are in full swing of that. So again, it is Twinings Irish breakfast. I'm going to get that started. How's the weather where you are, Tiffany? Is it good? Is it nice? Do you guys get any warmth yet? Hopefully. It is really nice and warm here. I was mentioning it's I think in the 60s. My goodness, it's here. It is here. You and the honey. Do you have a specific honey? It's windy there. Do you have a specific honey that you like? I'm just curious. Or you just kind of like any honey doesn't matter to you? Because I know people are finicky on certain things. I know a lot of people like the local honey. And I've heard that, if you do have the local honey, that it is, it's really good for allergies. You're running low. But do you have a specific, is that the name of it? Or are you running low on honey? But yeah, I think that, I've heard a lot of people that are very particular on theirs. And people say, yeah, you should get the honey closest to you. Local honey. Yeah, you have a lot of farms out here. Of course you do. That was silly of me. Yeah, no, I think that a lot of people like to do that because it does help with allergies. So I just put the tea bag in. This one is interesting because it said on it that it is a bold, rich taste, and it's a hearty tea. So I am really curious as to, and it's black tea. So I typically like black tea. So I'm very curious to see what this one tastes like. So local honey for colds as well. Yes, I have heard that. For colds, for allergies, it's supposed to be amazing. I had it once. We had a farmer's market near my job, so I did get some. But yeah, I think, and obviously we know right now spring is springing. We're definitely going to be, hey Kathy, we're definitely going to be experiencing, all the flowers start to bloom. And if you're like me and you have allergies, seasonal allergies, you're going to start noticing, the scratchy throat and all those things. So maybe I might want to get ahead of it this year. So it is steeping, and it's looking pretty good. I have to say I'm liking this a lot. Just the look of this a lot better than some of the ones that I've had before. So let's get started on the topic. the calm and chaos. So before I even get started, how many of you are feeling that, right now it's a little bit of a chaotic time in your life? And it could be in your personal life, it could be what you're feeling about the country, it could be in your kids' lives, it could be in relationships, just in general. Do you feel like there's any measure of chaos that you're trying to manage in your lives? And before I before I answer, because there's a serious answer that I do have to this one, I'm going to I think I'm going to try to have some of this tea earlier rather than later. Usually I wait, but I'm curious to see if it gets bolder as kind of it steeps a little bit more. So let me try some now. It's not bad. It tastes a little bit stronger than an English breakfast tea. It tastes a tiny bit stronger than that. So yes, and who doesn't? It's funny to me. Some people, and I wonder, I wonder who doesn't have chaos, or who doesn't, it doesn't affect them in a way that they even really talk about it, which I think is interesting. I love that you said daily, Tiffany, is your chaos. And, the reality of it is, I think a lot of us are just trying to figure out how to manage it. I think we're trying to figure out, how do we get through each day and all the different types of chaos that come at us, right? It could be from just what's happening in our own home that causes chaos. It could be what's happening at a job or not having a job. It could be, what's happening in friendships and, romantic relationships, and, in just all the circles that we run in. And then obviously politics and what's happening in the country makes us feel unsteady and uneasy, because every day we wake up, and throughout the day as we live our lives, there's a million things happening, with God and a little support system. Yeah, with God and your support system, it's how you manage it, right? But there are some days that even with that, even having the support system, even, having, God, there are going to be times where God is there, and we know he's always there, but there are going to be times where he's quiet, right? And in those quiet times, sometimes, how do you manage the chaos, right? How do you manage the stress? And that's obviously, being able to rely on his word and pray. And even when you hear nothing, right? What does that mean? And I think for a lot of people, and a lot of the conversations that I've had individually, you'll hear people say, Stacey, what do you do when God says nothing? And I'm going to tell you, I don't always know. Sometimes that means be still. Sometimes I feel like God is, saying, I gave you all the things that I equipped you with. Step out on faith. But sometimes you're like, well, which one is it, God? Can I get a hint? Can I phone a friend? Can you give me some type of clue? Because you don't want to make the wrong step. You wait. Yeah. What does that mean? Wait how long? Don't pass go. Collect $200. Don't collect $200. How long do you wait? And that is true. That is one of the things. Like, sometimes you just need to wait and just sit there and see what God is going to do. I think sometimes he tries to give us clues. That's definitely you. I think that sometimes he tries to give us clues that he's, hey, Stacey, I've equipped you. I've prepared you. I, gave you all the tools. I gave you all the knowledge that you need to have. What you need to do now is step out on faith and recognize that when you step out, you're not stepping by yourself. But that's challenging. I will not sit here and lie and say that that's not very difficult for most people. I don't know if any of you in here, that you said what I said daily. I think that, for most of us, we'd like to have some measure of a plan. Now, even when you plan, you have to plan for your plans not to always go the way that you thought they were going to go. And quite frankly, I'm used to my plans not going how they are. I'm used to that. I'm used to having to figure out how to navigate things, and I'm used to having to say, okay, God, I felt like this is what you were telling me, but this didn't pan out. What does that mean? Again, what it means is I'm constantly having conversation with him. I'm constantly, whether it's praise and reading my Bible, or reading my daily bread, or singing to him, or just sitting in silence and trying not to let all these outside influences impact, what I'm going to do and the things and the decisions that I make. That for me, it has been my kind of path that I'm on. And that has been, I'm not going to sit here and say that it's not been, but it's been extraordinarily difficult because, again, when you're in a season where there feels like there's so much, it's almost like, I don't know if you've heard of the eye of the storm, right? The storm is like going crazy around you and you're in the eye and the eye is peaceful, right? That's where, in life, you're wanting to, really, you don't want there to be a storm. If we're honest, we don't want there to be a storm. We want there to be no storm, clear skies, 70 something degrees, 75 degrees with a nice breeze every once in a while so we don't sweat, we don't have to, wear a jacket. That's what we really want. But the reality of that is that does not really occur, at least not every day, right? Some days are going to rain, some days are going to be cloudy skies. But what our life most often is, or what my life, I'll speak about myself, has been trying to get into that calm in the center. So regardless of the things that are going around in the world, regardless of how things don't pan out or kind of work out the way that I thought that they would, how do I get and stay in that calm? So I think that's for a lot of people. So when I think about that, again, as I usually do, for those of you who are new here, I go back to me as a kid. So Stacey as a child. Now, obviously, for those of you who have babies, who have kids, or have been around little kids, getting a kid, through what they call the toddler years is truly what people say is chaos, right? Because they're learning how to walk and they're clumsy and knocking things down and ripping things up and have no sense of danger or any of those things. Like just constant, like a constant hurricane that's happening. And so as you kind of get older, there are some kids that learn how to regulate, protect your peace, can help you in the calm. Yeah, protecting your peace is really important. We'll talk a little bit more about that actually. But as like I was saying, as you're working with a toddler and you're managing a toddler, they're all over the place. And so I can imagine as a parent, you're trying to calm yourself while you're trying to calm them because you don't want to act, as angry as they may be, or, they might be irritating you and you're trying to keep yourself calm because your hope is that you being calm will make them calm. Now, I don't know if that has worked out for all of you parents. Please feel free to put that in the chat. Or for those of you who've seen that have managed, toddlers or younger kids, it doesn't always work out that way. That's how you planned it, but it doesn't always work out that way. I find for me, when I think about me as a younger kid, there were lots of things that, again, life's, so for all of us, and how you experience it is different as you age. But as a kid, I had, a variety of different things that I would do to try to keep myself, I would say, I don't want to say calm, but to keep myself in a space where I felt that I could manage all the things that were going on around me. And so my sister and I, it was funny because we shared a room growing up. And so one of the things that we would do, which probably looking back on it, not the best use of our time because we should have really been cleaning our room sometimes, but we would make up songs to everything. And I find even now, going through things or just being stressed out, when I feel stressed, I'll make up the most ridiculous, what people, if I ever sang them outside of the house, people be like, wow, there's a lot going on there. But it makes me laugh. It relaxes me. It's sometimes like just super, super silly, and it could be about anything. I can literally make up a song about anything. And that's been one of my, people will call them coping techniques. That's been one of the things that I've done as from like I said, from a young kid all the way through. But I'm curious for you all, if you look back at your younger selves, what were some of the things that you did to kind of calm yourself in the midst of everything that was going on? And as you're writing those, one of the things that's interesting to me is I think oftentimes grown-ups, right, as we call them, because now we're the grown-ups, but when we were kids, we always felt like, they didn't get it. They didn't understand what it was to live the life that we do. And I think that there's a truth in that. I think even though you've gone through those years, you don't really know what it is to be in that time frame then, because you're thinking back to your youth as a person now that has wisdom and has understanding and has lived experience. So kind of trying to remember what you were going through then is a little off. And I think that unfortunately what happens is because we can't really remember that, sometimes we minimize what a young kid is going through. You hear it all the time, and I've even been guilty of saying it. Oh, these kids, they act like they have something that they should really be upset about. Well, guess what? They do. Kids have fears, they have stress, they have worries, they have doubt. And I feel like this generation, the generation now, and maybe even the one before it, because of the social media aspect of growing up, and I am so grateful that I did not have that, but because they have that, everything is magnified. Bullying is magnified. How much money you have is magnified or makes you feel lesser than. Where you can go. Are you traveled? Do you have this type of friend? Do you have all of those things? Are like compacted on kids nowadays that I had, some of those things to a degree, but nowhere near, because again, it wasn't magnified and online. It wasn't that. But I think that one of the disservices that we do, and I try to remember this, is your stress is your stress, but it doesn't diminish that somebody else has stress. It may not seem like a big deal to you because you're like, well, they don't have to pay bills and they don't have to do this and they don't have to do that, but they still have stress. So think about that when you're dealing with young people that may be frustrating the mess out of you, because guess what? They do that too. But think about that and try to remember that when you're dealing with young people, because as we age, we don't think we forget, but we do. We do forget a lot of the day-to-day emotions of handling what it is to grow up and manage those emotions. And on top of that, one of the things that is fantastic is that as you get older, hopefully, if you're working on yourself and you're a self-aware person and have what they call emotional intelligence, you actually grow into recognizing, I need to learn how to manage my emotions. Now, that doesn't mean they don't get the best of you sometimes, because we're not robots. So we do feel things, and some things are going to get under our skin in a way that, they may not. But the reality is, we have to recognize that everybody is managing just life the way that they can. All right, so I'm going to go back because I see a lot of things, great conversation that's happening in the chat. So things that helped you to, and this, I don't know if this is just when you're younger, because that's kind of what I was talking about, but reading books was something that helped you. Man, I hated reading. when I was younger, when I say hated reading, hated it with a passion. And we had books and books and books we had access to tons of books, but I did not like it. I started liking books when I was grown already, like out of college, and had to go into work, and I was like, okay, I'm tired of doing these puzzles. Let me try to figure out something else to do. And I started reading again. So that's when I started enjoying reading. Doing art, yeah. I actually really liked art. Not really great at it, but I really did like doing art. Journaling. It's so funny that you mentioned journaling. I actually found a journal from years ago, and man, it is amazing. I don't know if you've ever done this, has gone back and read some of the things that you wrote back then, because I feel like at certain times in your life, especially when you're able to go back and look at these things, you're like, what was I going through? I was either really down in the dumps, depressed, however you want to label it, and I don't diminish that, because there's a clinical depression and then just a sadness, right? But I'm like looking through this and thinking, my goodness, I was in a bad space. Some of the decisions I made were, and I was like, man, why did I date that person? Like, looking back on some of it, man, that was wasted time. So yeah, that is really interesting. Rock to music and singing, writing poems. I did all of that. Music has been an interesting thing for me. I love music in general, with few exceptions. I'm not into like heavy metal, can't tolerate it. And like, I lost my dog, lost my job, country, bluegrass, don't like that. But in general, like, I've been able to find different genres of music very interesting for me, because they're artistic in the way that they are, in the way they're expressed. And so I've liked expression in general. I think it's really helpful to see where people are or how people are navigating lives. And I find music is a really good way, a good avenue to do that. But yeah, I love music. Writing poems. I actually wrote poems for a while. And again, very, very helpful. Your daughter loves jazz and classical. I love that. My mom loves classical. And I love jazz music. I'm curious, have you ever played for her Blue and Green? Yeah, it's a beautiful song. It's actually one of my favorite songs. So when you have a chance, it's called Blue and Green. I suggest all of you listen to it. It's a good song. Girl, yes, girl, wasted time but valuable lessons. Yes, dating the wrong. I one point was gonna write a book, but then I thought, man, maybe the title's kind of mean. I was gonna call it Dating the Same Loser with a Different Face. Probably not the nicest title, but I felt like a period of time that I was doing that. But when you're doing that, you also have to look at the chaos that's happening in you that is attracting the chaos in this other person. And yeah, so for me, that was that was a real experience. I feel like I did date the same loser with a different face. But again, when you do that, what's in you that is attracting to that person? So I had to try to own that piece of it. And it's not always that you can own it. Sometimes people are just who they are. People will send representatives to meet you. So you think you're meeting one person, and it's really this representative. They sent this fake person that, pretends to be all the things that you wanted them to be. And then whammo, they pull the rug from underneath you, and you're like, oh, man, they had me good, but they're still not worth my time. So you got to go, right? So there's that. So good. Definitely play it. Let me know what she thinks about it. I'm curious because it's literally one of my favorites. So I don't know if she likes trumpet. So if she doesn't like trumpet, she's not gonna like it. But if she does, then she'll like it. All right. So let's go into. We talked a little bit about childhood times. I feel like if we go back into our teen years, and I'll start off by going into mine. My teen years. And teen years are really interesting because your hormones in itself cause internal chaos, right? Your hormones are, for boys and girls, all out of whack. You're starting to progress, and literally your body's changing, and you're trying to figure out what's going on. It's like you're a stranger within your own self, and I think that makes it really challenging just to navigate any measure of normalcy within yourself, but also external relationships. Friendships, romantic relationships, even though romantic relationships, chill out, you're a teenager still, right? But any of that, managing that emotional component is very, very challenging because internally you're trying to figure out, who the heck am I? Who am I? What are the things that I like? Why does my body feel that way? All of these things are happening at once. For me, it was really, I think, because I really lived in a bubble, I didn't really experience this as the growing up part of it, like that dating, that wasn't really a thing for me. I think more so it was like having personal family stuff happening, right? That you're, as a part of a family, when your family goes through a chaotic situation or has, chaos thrust upon it, then you're trying to manage that. And so as a teenager, you're managing that, you're managing your own self, and that makes it like the perfect, quote unquote, perfect storm, right? So how in the world do you manage, as a person who doesn't feel comfortable in their own skin fully yet, how do you manage when chaos is smacking you in the face? And for me, I did not manage it very well. Body shaming by certain family members. Whew, man. Let me tell you, body shaming in itself is such a hard thing because in that period of time, and I think this is actually, I'm glad you brought that up. I think that's a perfect thing or a segue to talk about, because as a teenager, when I was younger, I was taller than most of the kids, and then they just kept growing taller, and I never grew. I think 5th grade was the tallest that I was, and still the same height. But what was happening is I was like normal body weight in comparison basically to most of the kids, and then I wasn't, right? I started to get bigger, and the kids were not. The girls especially were not. And, I remember just comparing myself. And then people would say, things that they don't get psychologically can cause you to feel kind of weird about yourself. Oh, look at your chubby cheeks. And, oh, and my family's from Barbados. They'd be like, oh, she's so fat and sweet. Fat and sweet? Really? You could have kept that. You just could have said I was sweet, right? I don't need you to say I'm fat and sweet. So now you have, you're hearing all these comments from other people. You're seeing things on TV, and this person's attractive, and you're not attractive, and you see no one who looks like you in any magazines or on TV that's being called beautiful. And so now you're dealing with that on top of people commenting on, how your body looks. So you're already trying to figure out how you feel about your own self. And now you have people commenting on it. Thank you so much, because you could have kept that one to yourself, right? But they don't. And oftentimes I feel like family is so like in their own head. They don't even think about the fact that what they're saying to you impacts you. They have zero knowledge about the fact that what they're saying is going to impact the way that you literally feel about yourself, how you see yourself. So they might, say, oh, Stacey, you're like, I remember this one time. Oh, Stacey, you have such a pretty face. I'm like, well, dang, why don't you just say the rest of me is jacked up, right? So they used to always say, oh, you have such a pretty face. I'm like, you could have just said I was pretty and left it alone, right? But there's the qualifier that people have to put on things that, again, as you're a teenager and you're hearing things and you're not feeling comfortable in your skin or in your body, and then you're hearing all this external stuff, and then you're worried about, if you're somebody like me, I'm like, am I going to go to college? Where am I going to go to college? Because that was a thing for our family. You're going to go to college, but where? So am I going to get in? Am I going to be able to afford it? All these things, you have all this stuff in your head, and it's the chaos, right? So that at that age, you're already trying to manage that. Who teaches you that? Like, who teaches you how to manage the chaos? And I think oftentimes, especially if you're in the church or raised in the church, people just say, just go to God. What are you asking him for? Right? Like, again, I think what happens is we send our kids to school and we're like, okay, the teachers are going to impart this information to these kids and they're going to come back and they're going to be brilliant. But the problem is you're not doing, and I'm not saying this is not a dig at parents, so don't send me messages about how I was attacking parents. But I think what happens is we only do what we know. And so the reality of it is you have a bunch of kids that are not being taught how to manage emotions. One of the things that's interesting now is I watch a lot of, I don't know how they always come up in my algorithm, but I end up watching parenting videos about, what do they call it? Calm parenting or gentle parenting or whatever in the world it is, where, kids and parents have this, what seems to me like an hour-long dialogue about why this kid smacked you in the face. And I'm just in my head like, this could not be me. Like, I could not be having an hour-long conversation about why my kid just hauled off with everything in them and smacked me across my face. And I'm supposed to say, now, why were we doing that? Is that nice or no? We're going to have to count to 5 next time. Like, I don't know that I have that in me. I don't know that I have that measure of calm in me, right? But the reality of it is, part of those things are not bad. Some of that is good because we as kids were just told to do things because you were being told to do them, and oftentimes had no understanding of why we were doing them. We had no understanding that when they said, don't do this because XYZ, we just were being told and we were expected to do as we were told. But one of the things that I reflect back on when I was, a young kid and even a teenager was, if you were getting spanked or getting disciplined and they were like, be quiet, I'm going to give you something to cry for. You just did. You just spanked me. But we weren't really being taught how to manage emotions. It was like, if something is painful or hurts, suck it up. Don't react to that. And that's not normal. Like, if something hurts you, you're going to react to it, right? But again, people are doing what they're taught, and then it's carried on to further and further generations. So then, in that midst of that, you're in chaos, and you have no idea how to manage that. How do you find the calm in that? Yep, that was the motto. Absolutely. So one of the things that I see in here is about colorism. Colorism is a huge deal. And I think growing up and, trying to find your sense of self and how you looked at the world, the darker you were, people were like, oh, nobody wants to date that dark girl, that type of thing, or nobody wants to be with this one. And then, you would hear guys be like, oh, I want the, what they called red bones, right? I want the red bone girl, the light skinned girl with the long hair. And I was like, well, I ain't light and I don't have long hair. So I'm out. I am out. Yeah, little boys are told, be big boys and don't cry. It is so true. And then guess what? As we go into teenage years, how does that manifest? You have a lot of angry little boys or young men that have no idea how to manage their emotion. And then guess what? Those young men grow up into bigger men that still don't know how to manage their emotions, right? They're constantly living in internal chaos. And it's because of how you're, if you scrape your leg and you're bleeding, but did you die? Like, well, no, I didn't die, but I'm kind of bleeding a lot. Can you give me a little bit of love, a little affection, because I'm hurting? But in their mind, they're thinking, oh, we have to teach you how to be tough. In fairness, I get as a parent raising Black kids in a world that is basically always saying that you don't belong or that you're less than. I get the idea behind that, right? I get the understanding of why that might have happened. We want to teach you that there's going to be things that kind of knock you down in life and you have to be able to get up and do it. Exactly. Get up and do it again, right? And I get that. And a lot of that is how they were raised. And a lot of that is we have to try to teach you how to overcome fear. We don't want fear to set in. So we want you to be able to get up, get back on the bike, even if you just scraped up your whole leg and you got gravel in that sucker. Guess what? We're going to put some Vaseline on it. That's an inside joke. And then you're going to be fine. But the reality of it is that the unfortunate thing, I should say, about that is that you don't, in that situation, learn and nurture the ability for someone to manage chaos, which means to find a calm in the middle of the chaos. So now we go from teenage years to adult years. And in adult years, you've already graduated college, if that was the route that you went, or you went through a trade school or something like that, or you went right to the world of work. Now you're trying to manage other people's emotions on top of your own. So, you're managing a boss that maybe has never been a boss before. And I will say this happens a lot. You're put into a position where somebody is in charge of the organization, the department, and they know jack squat. They know zero, zilch, nada. And they're telling you what to do and giving you assignments and making you maybe feel lesser than because they have the title and you don't, and, speaking down to you or stealing your ideas. All of these things happen. So now imagine that young kid that never shared his Legos, was never told they had to share, that, is now in a position where they're under somebody who knows less than them and is constantly berating them or speaking to them negatively. How do you think that is going to go? Right? Because now what you've done, and this is an interesting thing, oftentimes we talk about these things called triggers, right? There are things that we could be good. We wake up on, and this used to be my thing, I'm wake up on Monday, and I hated going to work on Mondays. I don't think anybody enjoys going to work on Mondays, but even if we had 3-day weekends, we would hate going to work on Tuesdays. But in any event, going to work on Mondays, I was like, oh, I have to get up and go. And then you get up and go, but you're like, okay, it's Monday. My sister has it that every day is a better day than yesterday. So, okay, we're going to get up and go, and we're going to have a good day. And you get into the door, and literally somebody's like, can you do this? And you're like, whoa. Good morning. How you doing? Like, what's going on? It's like it's an instant doom, right? You had an idea that everything was going to be cool and calm, and that was going to be your day. And then wham, the first thing you get in the door, first thing you leave your office, or you get off the train, or you get off the bus, or whatever it was that brought you there, or you log in, and immediately somebody smacks you in the face with stress, right? Somebody brings that chaos to what you had literally said to yourself, this is going to be a calm day. This is going to be a good day. I'm going to walk in happiness today. I'm going to be positive to people. You might have prayed yourself up and like gotten prepared to go take on the world, and then somebody, psh, as soon as you get in, you're like, okay. And then immediately what happens is you can feel yourself getting agitated, right? And there are people in general, if we're honest, that get under our skin more than others, right? They instantly kind of cause that friction as soon as you see them, hear their voice, whatever it may be. But now, how do we get that calm back in the midst of the chaos? If you've never been taught how to do that, if you've never had coping skills, if you've never had a way to manage your own emotions, how do you do that? And that becomes, I think, a part of the issue. And even for me, I'm going to tell you, I know a lot about emotional intelligence. I'm very well aware when somebody or something is setting me off. And there are some times that I'm like, nope, we're not doing that today, Stacey. And oftentimes, and people I think are very surprised about this, about me, I actually like to be inward a lot. Like I'm very reflective, very introspective. So I don't necessarily talk about all the things that are going on in my brain, because quite frankly, I don't think people would care to hear them all the time. But what will happen is, there's always going to be, not always, there can be a fight about, okay, when is the time that I'm going to cage the bear, and when am I letting that sucker fly free? And I have to say, as I'm getting older, I'm trying more to not just cage the bear, to eliminate the bear, right? But there are things that trigger or poke the bear, right? Ding, 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 and you know it. It's like, when you're a little kid and, if you have siblings and your parents are like, y'all stop touching each other. And your sibling would be like, I'm not touching you. I'm not. And they'd be like really right next to you. Right, like barely that far away from touching you, that type of thing, just to get under your skin. That's what we still manage. It's just not our sibling that's doing that. It may be life that is doing that. It may be the stress of finance that is doing that. It may be relationships, friendships that are doing that. It may be, not feeling that you have a community that is causing that feeling of chaos, where, and this is the thing that's challenging. So there are things called intrinsic motivators and there's extrinsic motivators. So intrinsic motivators are your own way of managing you. Extrinsic things are the external things. So your friends, music, all the things external outside of your body that can motivate you, can influence you. The issue is, let's imagine that we had no access to any of those external things. How would you find calm in your chaos? How would you find a way to manage the madness that can often just come at you? And it comes at you in all directions. If we're honest, there's not really a time where we're just like, oh, there's just one thing that's stressing me out and that's it. That's the only thing that I'm worried about. If we're living in this country right now, chaos is hitting us everywhere, right? It's like giving us uppercuts, it's giving us jabs. It's literally, it's smacking us in the back of the head. It is everywhere. So what are those things for you that says, okay, Stacey, if no one calls and checks on you, if no one logs on to Sipping Tea with Stacey T, if you have no family that is like making sure you're good, if you can't listen to music even, what internally do you do to calm yourself? And so for me, that's been one of the things that I've really been looking at. And in fairness, I have been doing these things for a long time. I've been writing for a long time, and that is really calming for me. And I believe it's definitely a gift God gave me. Maybe because he knew that there were going to be times that I needed something that was a calming space for me. Because, and again, everybody has stress, but I feel, or chaos that happens in their lives. I feel like I've had a pretty healthy amount of it, right? But I'm sure if you were to look at your lives, and me knowing the majority of you, you'd be able to say the same thing. You'd be able to look at your life and say, man, I've gone through this, whether it's losing a loved one, having a bad relationship, losing a job, having chaos in health, having, any of the things that impact us. I can see that in all of you that are logged in right now. In the midst of that, do you know that you have something that is just you, that if anybody didn't check on you, would be able to calm your chaos? That's what you really need to be thinking about. And so for me, I've been really looking at that. What are the things? And it is writing, but I haven't been doing a lot of that. Why? I have a lot of thoughts in my brain, and I feel that's another kind of chaos, because I told you guys that I am a reflective person. I'm very introspective, but that can also cause you to be an overthinker, right? It can cause you to, I don't know if you've ever heard of analysis paralysis. Analysis paralysis is when you think, but do nothing, right? Because you're like, oh, I have this idea and I want to do this, but you like actually taking the step to do something, to get something done, does not happen. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Sometimes it's fear, sometimes it's depression, sometimes it's, that there are other things pulling at you. But it's something that it does happen to a lot of people, especially people, for those of you who are also overthinkers, or, and by the way, people say, oh, it happens to perfectionists. I am not a perfectionist. That I can tell you. That ship has sailed for me, right? There was a day back in the day that even if, like right now I'm looking at my face on the screen, and there are absolute things that I'm like, really, Stacey, that's happening, this is going on. And I could point out and pick apart the things that I do not like just looking at the screen right now. But that would inhibit me from doing anything, right? If I was like, oh man, that doll's skirt, it should be a little bit down, and there's a piece of hair that's moving the wrong way, and there's the reality of it is you're not going to have perfection. So I don't aim for that at all. I know people think that of me, but that's not a thing for me. That's not a thing for me at all. I like things to look good. I like things to be good, but perfection, no. All right, so people say you turn to laughter. So you make yourself laugh, or you look at things. So again, is that an external thing for you, or is that you? I mean, I know you're a joker. So is that you make things laugh, or you just laugh at what's going on in your life? I'm curious. You become a dreamer. You're saying I become a dreamer, or you've become a dreamer? Because dreaming is good. And that's another thing. And again, you guys sometimes bring up really great points. Is, there's a point in time, and I really wish I could find out like an age range, and I'm sure somebody's already done a study on it, but when do we stop dreaming? It's a really, you've become a dreamer. That's good. That's good. There's this weird thing that happens. When you're a kid, you really think, and even through teenage years, I feel like you think, the world is your oyster, and you can do all these great things, these amazing things, and you can try this and be that. And then it's like, the older you get, that becomes like, all right, I just need to be practical. I need to make money because I need to have, some type of money in my 401k, which let's not talk about that right now. But I need to have some type of money saved up so I can retire and this and that. Like, it becomes that. And there's not a problem with that. I understand the planning side, the practicality side of those things, and I'm not against those. But when do we stop dreaming? When do we stop saying, you know what, let me just try this? Because this is what I've always wanted to do. And you know what, if I don't do it, then why? Like, what is the reason? If I try it, I fail, then that's one thing, right? I've tried it, I've failed, I saw what it was, I experienced it. I can say that I can check it off of my what if list. Because I'm going to tell you right now, I do have a few what ifs. What if I had done this differently? What if I tried this? And those what ifs can kick your tail. They can kick your tail. So I think that it's important. Yeah, I don't think we ever stop dreaming until we leave up out of here. Well, we shouldn't, but I think people do. I think people get into, I just have to be practical. I just need to do what brings in money. And I get it. We have bills to pay. We're grown adults. I get that. But then you look back and you're like, man, did I live life or did life live me? did I let the chaos of life like extinguish the fire that I had? So there's a difference between the chaos making you find calm. That's good, right? If you can figure out how to block out the chaos or center yourself and get into a calm space, that's good. But when you let the chaos extinguish your fire, that's bad. So there's a very big difference between those two things. Dreaming switched to wishful thinking. Woo, man. Oh, that's, yeah. I can't even lie. That's 100% true. I wish I could have. I wish I did. Yeah, but but I will tell you, those what ifs can kick you in the rear end. So you really need to think about, what are the things, and Al, you made a really good point. We are still here. So why not let's look back through our journals. Let's think about us as a teenager, as a young adult, and say to ourselves, what are the things that we wanted to do? What are the things that we thought we would always do or be? And ask ourselves in an honest question, did we let the chaos of life, which is lifing, right? Did we let that chaos push us out of that? Or did we just calm ourselves and we're waiting for the time to step into that? I think oftentimes we use life as life and its stress as an excuse. I think sometimes we use it as a security blanket. And let me make this very clear. Life kicking you in the tail is a real thing. Like, it is a very real thing. So I'm not saying that, oh, Stacey's heartless. And I'm talking about me too, right? I think sometimes, I've used, oh, well, this is going on and I have to be here for this one, or I have to do this for that one. And I have to, I feel like sometimes we can use that, if we're not careful, we can use that as an excuse to not try and to not do. That's very easy because it's what we know, right? What we know is safe. Even if it doesn't feed our spirit, even if it doesn't fill our cup, even if it's not purpose. And God has a purpose for each and every one of us. So even if it's not purpose, but we're used to it, we will sit back in that sucker and be like, oh, well, this is where, and people will lie and say, well, this must be where God has me. He didn't have you there. You just don't, you won't step out on faith. And by you, I'm talking about me too. So it's the collective you. I'm still learning to find calmness with my busy schedule, but I'm also learning from my child. Man, people say all the time, kids are the biggest teachers. They say it all the time. It's not too late to do what you want to do. Absolutely. Life will knock you out. Life lifes. I'm telling you, life lifes. And I remember thinking, because I'm 48 now, I remember thinking, when I was younger, like 48's mad old, and now I'm like, oh, I got stuff that I still want to do. I got a lot of stuff. So the older I get, the younger the age I'm at, it seems. True. Got used to being comfortable. We all do. We all get used to being comfortable because in that space, it feels safe. I think that one of the things, if we're to look at what we look for in life, I say consistency. When people ask me what is the thing that you look for most, is consistency, because it makes me feel safe. But if we really think about it, that's what we're looking for, a feeling of safety, of security. And so because of that, we often do the same thing every day, right? Even if it gets boring, we're like, oh, this is so boring. Every day I get up and I do this, and then I do this, and I do this, and then that's the end of the day, and then, whoop, go to sleep, and then do the same bloody thing all over again, right? That routine, when we're like, it's so monotonous, it's so boring, it feels so blah, it brings us comfort because we know what to expect, even in that boredom, even in that monotony, even in the sameness of every day. So I think we often trick ourselves into figuring that's the calm. But I think if we really kind of peel back some of the layers, even in that, because we're quenching the fire that's in us, it's like almost like trying to put out a fire with those trick candles, right? If anybody was ever mean enough to get you those trick candles for your birthday, you blow out the candle and then it lights back up because it's never going to go out by you blowing it out. I feel like that's really what happens. We have to move ourselves out the way to live life beyond the chaos. Man, we do. We will kill all measure of being able to dream and do and live and love and explore and all those things because we're so used to chaos. And I think, people talk about PTSD oftentimes when they think about or talk about military. I find that sometimes, especially if you grow up in a chaotic household as you're younger, it's funny because I've listened to some of my colleagues and some of the kids that I went to school with, and I was like, good Lord, y'all had butlers and what else? Like, just listening to how they grew up was very, I mean, I couldn't even say it was different. It was like apples and zebras in comparison to how I grew up. But then, so if you look at, what that foundational experience with chaos is, and you trying to find calm and trying to find something to center you in the midst of all that, and then you kind of speed it up to present day, I find that, we don't really, we've never mastered it. We've never mastered what that looks like. People have fear, which causes stress of failure to a new routine. Absolutely. Absolutely. Like, why would you try something new? Why? And the sad thing is, oftentimes people around us are the ones who tell us, man, don't try anything. Look, you know what to do. Do what you do. Keep your head down and just keep hustling, and that's how you do it. Okay, I'm going to keep hustling, and then what? Like, is there more after that? Because you can do that, and there's nothing wrong with that. If that's where you feel like God has you and that's your purpose, is because he might have you keeping your head down in a ministry, right? He may have you keeping your head down because right now you need to keep your head down so that he can then amplify you later. Because there might be periods of time that that's the case, or seasons, and that word for me. We'll talk about that at another point. But there may be seasons of that, right? However, going back, then what? Right? After that season, then what? So even in a season, there's a planting season, right? So that might be the time that you're keeping your head down, right? And just working, hustling. But I'm supposed to get something, right? I'm supposed to harvest something. I'm supposed to reap something. And what I reap, if you believe the word, what I reap is supposed to be more than what I planted, right? But how is that when I'm only still just taught to plant? Right? Am I ever collecting the harvest, or am I just going to plant again? Is somebody else collecting the harvest? So am I putting in all this work and somebody else is collecting that? That's also something that can happen, because we're just used to, I'm just being the worker bee. It doesn't matter if they don't acknowledge me. And I'm not saying you need to wait for acknowledgement from something, because again, that's extrinsic, that's external. You need to be talking to God about how to bring calmness to you. You need to be asking him how to bring calmness, because the storms will come. There's no way for us to avoid them. They will be there. How do we manage in the chaos? We have to switch it up because the routine is not producing the results we want. Yes, it's not producing fruit. And that's a whole nother story. That may be another episode, is producing fruit. But again, you have to look, and I talked about this earlier. What is what you internally can do? So that may be you singing to God. It may be you reading your Bible. It may be you reading. It may be you writing. It may be you like literally sitting and forcing yourself to sit in quiet. It may be you listening to music. Now the music is external, but maybe you're singing a song from your heart. Right? Maybe you're writing a song. Maybe you're deciding, you know what? I want to go explore the world. I'm going to travel more. I'm going to be present for people. I'm going to intention to have more friendships. I'm going to intention to spend more time with people and get myself out of my head, because that's a very real thing, and it can be crippling. And as I said, it can be paralyzing to do that. So I'm asking for you today to really take away from this particular episode. I know that the world right now feels like it's in calamity. And I will tell you, it can be very challenging. On a daily basis, I'm like, okay, Stacey, don't listen to the news the first thing in the morning. I try to purpose myself, other than to like listen to the weather, not to really listen to the news first thing in the morning, because it can set up your day to be frustrated and aggravated and agitated, because there is some dumb mess happening now. I mean, just there's no other way for me to say it, but it's dumb. And so in the middle of all of that, how can I still find the calm because I need that. And it's promised to me. Peace is promised to all of you. If you believe in God, if God is your Lord and Savior, peace is promised to you. So how do you get the peace of God? And I think that's the important thing to think about. So with that, oh, I'm preaching now? No, I don't want to preach. Maybe that's another episode. For those of you who don't know, I am a minister, but I'm not intending to preach today. But I really do want to say I appreciate, yes, we do need to start the day with God to equip us for the calm. That's the only way. It really is the only way. Because you start your day, like what you feed into your spirit first thing in the morning, that's going to be, you're planting that for it to grow all day long, right? So I'm really trying to be like intentional about either listening to music first thing in the morning, and having that be what I'm planting all through the day, or, you know, again, listening to the weather and then that's it. Putting my headphones on, or even, you know, praying a quick prayer, playing a game, something that does not allow for anger, hurt, frustration, agitation, or any of those things. I don't want to give those. I'm not planting those. I'm not want to plant those and then let them grow all day long. That's just not something that I want to do. So I just want to say thank you all. I think I have a couple new people today, or at least one. Thank you so much for being here and being a part of me growing this Sipping Tea with Stacey T platform. It means a lot to me, and I feel really excited about where I feel like this is going to go and grow. So I thank you for planting the seed, and being here, at the initial starts of this. And believe me, I will not forget that. I will not forget that, and it does not, it's not lost on me that you are supporting me early on. So thank you for that. Next week we'll still be sipping tea. I don't know what time it's gonna be at, y'all. I'm not gonna even pretend to tell you ahead of time. But we will be sipping tea next week. I've already reached out to one person and said that we might be doing something pretty soon. Actually, two people. One of them who's on the line. And then another person, we're going to be doing something that involves beating this mug into subjection. So I have a makeup artist who is going to be doing one about, and it's going to be an interesting one because it's going to be about makeup or deception. Or the art of deception, because I've heard a lot of my male friends say, man, I didn't know that woman looked like that, because she took her makeup off and she looked like a whole different person. So we'll be doing one on that. Yeah, I know. I'm going to need to set a time. Actually, you know what? Tell me what time seems to be working for you guys. Because I'm all over creation with it. But I do want to have a set time. That way people know to log in at a specific time. Same bat time, same bat channel type of a thing. So let me know what works for you all. And other than that, I just want to say again, thank you. Be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and extend to yourself and to me a measure of grace. Have a great rest of your week and see you next Saturday. Bye, everyone.